Is toots offensive? Is that offensive?
Chutz?
Toots.
Oh, toots. Well, it depends who you're saying it to.
A woman.
Yes, 100%. There is.
Like you can't say, like, what is it short for?
Tootsie, right?
Yeah, I guess, but why is Tootsie offensive?
Because it's like sweetie. It's another, like if you were to call a woman like sweetheart or...
Sweetheart is offensive?
I think so.
Oh, Jesus.
I think this is a great way to start the episode.
But this is perfect segue, actually. Yeah. Speaking of things
actually, you're right. It is a perfect segue
that are now very offensive
to my number 8. My number 8 film. My number 8 favorite film is Wedding Crashers. A story about sexism.
She was a very, very family-oriented girl, and she was very into her grandmother. They're very family-oriented.
Give me a break.
That was my first Asian.
It's funny. It's got a little bit of heart to it, but it's just fun more than anything. It's a universe, I think, that you want to be part of. You want to live in that world where it's a little bit carefree and you always get the benefit of the doubt, and these two guys are just super fun and funny and witty and kind of just, they get all the breaks, and even if they don't, they handle it in good spirits, and it's just a fun movie-going experience, and that's mainly why I love it so much.
Yeah. I mean, I've been looking forward to this one because we can just love this movie together. Because I love this movie. Of course I love this movie. It's so much fun. This is the first one we've done that I really didn't do any research. I was just like, I could talk about this for 6 hours and just quote it and talk about how much I love it. I remember being so excited when it was coming out because like growing up on like R-rated comedies, like really, and those disappeared for such a long period of time, like an R-rated adult comedy, right? It's like American Pie kind of brought high school R-rated comedy back and was like, oh, that's a big deal, and it was. But like in the early to mid 2000s, there was sort of this renaissance of movies that would have used to have featured, you know, Chevy Chase or Bill Murray or guys from the 80s, or Eddie Murphy big time, right? Is like some of his R-rated comedies in the 80s are some of the best movies ever.
Me, yeah. Sexy chocolate!
I was just so excited, and this movie just did not disappoint. I mean, as you said, it's just a great time, and we can, and I'm sure we will, start to dissect some of the things that, you know, that obviously not everything ages well. Not everything was great when it came out.
Yeah, that's better.
but like, it's nice. And I'm gonna be dancing around all this shit this whole time. It's nice, though I'm sure this is our privilege talking, to just like have a movie like this where you can just like laugh. Like, just laugh. It's a comedy.
Right.
Like, it's just, you know, you start to overthink anything, especially raunchy comedies from any era, and you're gonna be like, oh shit, this is should we be laughing at this? Shouldn't we? Like, just shut the fuck up and watch it and laugh.
When was the last time you saw Revenge of the Nerds?
You know karate? No. Good.
To be honest, I don't think I've ever seen Revenge of the Nerds, but I've read a lot about it.
Yeah, there's some cringeworthy moments. There's some cringeworthy moments.
A big fan of Porky's. I watched Porky's a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And Porky's is obviously, it's probably worse than Revenge of the Nerds just based on what I've read. I mean, Porky's is just about sexual assault and rape, and like, ha 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 ha, like, let's play those for laughs, like for 2 hours.
We can't show you more of the shower scene because what they're looking at isn't watered down.
They want us to look. They want us to look.
Porky's.
When I just rewatched it a night or two ago, I was just floored by how many times I was just cackling like laughing out loud at almost everything Vince Vaughn said. I mean, everyone is very good. Like, that's one of the reasons this movie works as well as it does, because it does have its faults, and not just in terms of like the things it laughs at, but just in terms of like content and story structure. It starts to meander a little bit, but the strengths of the performances are so strong. But Vince Vaughn is far and away just carrying this thing, and everyone else just kind of has to get in there and throw a few punches and have fun.
Yeah.
But he is just everything he said. I mean, it is so eminently quotable. It's just phenomenal. It's just all his little mannerisms. Mwah.
It's great. Their dynamic, I think, works really well. I mean, the buddy comedy is not a new thing by any means, but I feel like their dynamic worked really well. Usually, I feel like in buddy comedies, like one guy's the dope, and one guy's like the smart one, and then that's sort of how to play off each other. And I don't feel that way. I mean, you might be able to make the argument that Vince Vaughn is like the dopier of the two because he keeps getting into these, hilarious situations. But I don't see it that way at all.
Oh, don't okay, buddy, me.
Look, we just came by and said we're going to take a little bike ride, and then we're going to come back and check up on you and take care of him, okay? I want you to get my little angel up and running. Hang in there.
I hope you flip your bike over and knock your 2 front teeth out.
I love their chemistry together. I love how they sort of feed off each other.
I know we both love this movie, so like it gets boring to just talk to
just say
because
why
I could just say almost every scene is so funny and quote all the lines. So I feel like we're gonna end up talking more about the things that are problematic or that we don't like. But that's obviously not to say that we don't love this movie, because it's on your top 10 list, and I adore this film.
Yeah, we're here for the juice. Let's get into what we hate.
Yeah. Well, first of all, why don't you tell the people watching why you hate women, gays, and minorities? Because clearly that's the case, because you love this film so much.
I'm glad you brought it up. I have a PowerPoint.
Finally, someone asked me to talk about this.
I have a PowerPoint. I've been looking for an outlet. No, that couldn't be farther from the truth. I don't know where to go with this. That's just not true. Although it as I was rewatching it just the other day, it did stick out to. I mean, I guess the time that we're living in, like literally right this second, you're super aware. You're even more aware than you were before. So yeah, some of the jokes and some of the things stick out a little bit.
Death, you are my bitch lover! Todd, that's good! Tell that mean ocean!
It's hard to offend me in film, like seriously offend me in film, just in any genre, because I know it's fake, and I know these characters need to exist for films to work. All types of characters. I'm not even just saying specifically in this film, but just all different types of characters need to exist. American History X has to have certain characters in it for it to work. I'm not saying I support them or agree with them, but it just doesn't offend me to see that sort of stuff, as I'm sure it does many, many viewers.
I think, yeah, I mean, we can go through what we think has aged the worst, so to speak. But it's easy to forget, I think for younger generations than ourselves, we're both mid to latter half of our 30s, that at that time, I was just having this conversation with several people the other day because I'm really fascinated by it. To me, it felt like it was progressive in the early 2000s, or it was at least considered progressive from a comedy standpoint, that we can all make fun of everybody, right? That I honestly, because I think a big part of that was the Chappelle Show, which was like 01, 02, 03, which was like probably the funniest television ever made, but was so heavily on like our racial differences.
Incredible. A first round absolutely chock full of surprises.
Unbelievable. Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice now officially white. OJ black again. What a day.
But I remember thinking it's like, oh yeah, we can make fun of everybody and everyone can make fun of us as long as we're doing it with good intent, which I know is now like intention doesn't matter now. No. But it was a different time in the sense that like, we can all laugh at each other because we're all worthy of being made fun of.
Yeah. And that's what I think. I mean, that's great. That's a great point, because I think comedy needs that in any form of comedy. And I'll defend comedy literally to the day I die because I love it so much. I love all forms of it. I think it's so needed. I think it was Trey Parker who said when they asked him about South Park and they're like, "What, you make fun of so many different things," and so like, and I think a response was, "Well, once you start limiting yourself one place, then it makes everything else you did racist or sexist or terrible in any way. If everything is on the table, as you sort of said before, then it's all sort of okay because you're not picking and choosing your battles of what is okay. You're not defining what is okay to say and what isn't okay to say. And I agree with that statement, and I'm sure a lot of people would disagree that like, oh, we should have limits and we should have boundaries. I'm not saying you have to enjoy it. I'm saying comedy shouldn't be limited in that way because then once it's a slippery slope. Once you start saying, okay, well, this is okay and this is not okay, well, then it's all not okay because then we're really drawing attention to the fact that something is wrong with it. And then it's like, well, then what makes that okay and that not okay? And it kills everything in comedy. So we need movies like this in a certain regard, and we need the opposite. We need a movie to make fun of straight white males for being douchebags. So, like, you need those comedies too. You need everything should be okay on some level in terms of comedy.
Yes, agreed.
Great. Should we end it there? Or?
yeah. And fuck you if you disagree. Obviously, I think the most troubling character is the brother, Todd, who I think most people circle with an exclamation point as the most problematic part of this film, and rightfully so. Just from my opinion, I think it's fine that character is gay, and fine from like a comedy standpoint. Like I think it would have aged much better that if he was just gay but had some level of confidence. It's the combination of like he couldn't just be gay, he also has to be like very socially strange, also a little bit goth, also really like he's like crumpled up all the time, like he's like no, leave me alone, you know, like he's like it's too much. And if he had just been played more like almost like his mother, like Jane Seymour, where he's like always giving Vince Vaughn the eye, or you know what I mean, like that could have aged better. So it wasn't his homosexuality that.
Well, it's something I was, and this is, I already, please forgive my ignorance. I asked this question, seriously, I don't know if it can be taken out of context or whatever, so I put a little disclaimer in front of it, but I remember not thinking about him being gay. I remember him as being goth. I thought that was more of what they were making fun of. I put it in quotes. Like, I think that's how I always really interpreted it.
No, I get the point, because I think it's a good point that, and I thought this too when I first saw it when it came out, was that he wasn't creepy because he was gay.
Right,
he was
wasn't
creepy
the joke.
because he was like a creepy dude.
Yeah.
And that's probably hard to separate, you know, and clearly problematic. But you know that's a decent point.
Yeah, because one of my favorite scenes, I mean they're all my favorite scenes, is the scene where he ties up Vince Vaughn, and clearly a sexual scene, but the comedy wasn't coming from. I wasn't laughing at him for having those feelings. I'm laughing at him for the way he went about it. I'm laughing at him for tying him up in the middle of the night. I'm laughing at him for thinking it's great to sketch him in the nude or paint him in the nude and then show him as he's tied up and be like, I did this for you, do you like?
That's my favorite. It's my favorite line in the entire film. It's sexual and violent.
I call the painting Celebration. It's sexual and violent.
I think that's my favorite.
Like, that's fun. Like, it's not funny that he did it. It's funny that he's thinking this is working. Like, this is a good way to do this. Not that that's how he feels. So and maybe I'm just too ignorant to sort of see it, but I never felt that him being gay was the joke. I never thought they were mocking him being gay. They're mocking him for
you know what? That brings up a good point. A good segue is that maybe his character is made worse by the presence of the grandmother. Because the grandmother is so wholly unnecessary, and as I rewatched it again, I honestly was like, I can remember watching this film in 2005 and thinking that was a really lazy concept. Like, this movie's really funny, but are they, because there was like a trend there for a few years of comedies where there always had to be like a foul-mouthed old person. And that was like a joke, that was like a character trope. And I just feel like it was played out even by the time this movie came along.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking like, oh God, they're gonna do this too with like a foul-mouthed grandma. And that woman's a wonderful actress. She's in a ton of funny stuff prior, but like, this is not her best performance. Like, her delivery is really like stilted.
What is our situation, Dad?
You're a homo. For God's sakes, William, put Mommy to bed already.
I mean, I'm sure that contributes more to this general tone of homophobia and insensitivity. Whereas if you got rid of her, maybe the character on his own would be a little easier to forgive. I think what is aged the worst is just the general tone of like frivolousness, like the wedding montage, or their entire character base is that they lie to women to have sex with them. And now it does seem so fucked up to like base a movie on your two heroes just lying to women and manipulating them into bed, and it is. So that I would count as progress, is that, oh, we're gonna look at things differently now. Like, that's good.
So let me ask you this. So yes, you're right. The thing that has aged by far the worst is just their general masculinity, their toxic masculinity.
Yeah? The proper girl in the hat just fucked the shit out of me. I'm sorry.
That story is those guys being jerks. Fun-loving. I don't think they're like really super malicious, but fine. You want to just say they're jerks and assholes, and we shouldn't glorify that. I'll understand. But the story is about those jerks becoming good guys. They're becoming, at the end of the film, they both settle down. They find the women that they love, and they want to be with those people. Like, that's the happy ending. They find, the guy gets married. So whether you buy it or not, blah, blah, blah. My question is to you, in film, are you able to broach those topics and show those characters and go along that journey if the end result is showing from A to B the development and showing the errors in those ways? Because I would make the argument that they learn those lessons. They learn the lesson. Again, it's not this type of film, but from a character arc story, you kind of fill in the blanks a little bit, but those guys learn their lesson. Well, we're too old for this. We can't be treating people this way. We want to settle down, and now we're going to be good guys. Like, that's essentially, they don't spell it out, but essentially that's the journey of the character. Should we not do that? Is that wrong to do that? I feel like you hate this so much.
No, I think one, it's different and more complicated in an overt comedy film that's playing all of these things for laughs, as opposed to like a more dramatic, nuanced take on an arc like this. And two, I think you're giving the film Wedding Crashers a lot of credit, saying that like, oh, they really transform into these good guys in this
But that's
arc.
the intent. I'm not saying
No,
it's...
I know, but the bar is very low.
Sure.
Like, do they learn any lessons really? I mean, oh no, like these kind of scumbaggy guys end up with the two most beautiful women in the world and driving a convertible through the field. Like, there are no real consequences to like years of bad acting. So I just think I get your point, and again, this is like what we talked about at the very onset of this thing. It's like, it's just a comedy. You don't have to overthink it. Like, you get what they're trying to do, but like, I don't know that either of them, if we're really dissecting it, if they learned a lesson and they are now, like they got to act like fools, and then they got their way and everything. Like, everything works out great for them.
Yeah, but there was a middle part where they break up as friends, and he's thinking about killing himself. Listen, it's not that type of film, so I can't sit here and defend like, no, it really gets into the core of human emotion. It doesn't, but it's implied. It's implied, and for that ending to have any sort of merit or meaning, they have to go through a transformation. I mean, that's just storytelling in general. Like, and it has to be believable. You have to see them be douchey. The negative is glorifying it in a sense that the fact that it's fun.
Yeah.
That's probably the real problem. But it's a comedy. Like it's supposed to be fun.
I get
like,
it. It's a comedy.
Yeah, I don't know.
It isn't.
You ever think we're being, I don't want to say sleazy, because that's not the right word, but a little irresponsible? I mean,
No. One day you'll look back on all this and laugh.
outside of the social issues that we can sort of point to, from a filmmaking standpoint, what are there things that you what did you really are there things that you disliked, I guess, from a filmmaking standpoint?
I think the film, from just a strictly filmmaking standpoint, is so funny and so enjoyable that, like, I never watch it and go, oh yeah, I really dislike this part or this section, or, you know, like I said at the beginning, I'm willing to forgive so much because it's so hilarious. Little nitpick, well, I'll start with a bigger one. I do think that once they leave the family house, it starts to kind of lose its way a little bit. They're trying to cram a lot into that third act. It's like I said, it's kind of meandering. Not everything they do makes perfect sense. Like it really does kind of lose its way. Like Owen Wilson, for example, I don't think he needs to go to that party and conduct this whole plan to, like, go in as a waiter and get beat up again by Bradley Cooper. Like, we know Bradley Cooper sucks. We know Bradley Cooper cheats on Rachel McAdams. Like, all of this has been established.
Yeah.
Like, it's that seems like that should have been the final scene. Or cut that out and make the wedding the final scene. Like, they just start jumping around. Yeah. And then this is what I thought too. Sorry, I'm ranting all of a sudden.
No, this is why we're here.
When I rewatched it this last time, I'm not going to say it started to feel like it was dragging. But in that third act, I was like, okay, like, I forgot there was this much. And then I thought, wait, we haven't even gotten to Will Ferrell yet. Like, we're not even to that part yet, and I'm already like, Jesus, there's a lot. They're really cramming a lot in here. And so I think a good point can be made that, like, Will Ferrell's character was really kind of shoehorned in there. I mean, I know he's funny, and I know, like, I'm happy he's in there, because that was also in a time where you could have a cameo in a movie and not everybody knew about it beforehand. So I remember when he steps out of the shadows with the nunchucks around his neck, you're like, oh my God, Will Ferrell, you know?
Yeah, I was like, oh shit, Will Ferrell's in this.
So it's like, it's all good, but, like, it definitely starts to lose its way and kind of lose track of what the rest of the movie had built up to being in that third act.
I agree. This was my criticism. We're going to say essentially the same thing, but it's long. It's a 2 hour and 7 minute movie. That's insane. Like, for a comedy, for a rated R, like, raunchy kind of, like, it blows my mind that they, like, were allowed to do. I don't think that would happen again. I don't think a studio would ever be like, okay, we're going to do 2 hours. Like, Judd Apatow's the only guy who's doing 2 hour comedies. Like, that's it.
He does 3 hour comedy.
Exactly. He gets carte blanche. He's a genius, in my opinion. But nobody else. Fuck everybody else. So it's something I can relate to, because these are the type of movies that I would like to make. Probably a little more heart and a little less comedy, but still balancing comedy and heart is the way I'll just phrase it, for lack of a better way to phrase it. But I think this is the problem, and why these movies, like Judd Apatow movies, tend to be longer, is because I think this movie made a conscious decision to be like, all right, we're not cutting any of the comedy. This is funny, we know it. We're gonna let Vince Vaughn go. We're gonna let these scenes play out. We have really funny ideas like that house. That movie's made now. I don't think they ever leave the house. The movie takes place at the house. That wedding is at the house, and then they end when they leave the house. Like, I don't think, like, but there's two substantial chunks of the film that bookend that house weekend. And that's what I think is really tough for comedies that try and tell a good story. Is now your runtime, just because to get the jokes in there and to leave the timing of that shit all in there, and then also tell a story that's meaningful and impactful, it starts to push out your runtime. And I applaud them for not making those sacrifices, but it does show, because they try and cram in story after they leave the house.
I think from a purely filmmaking standpoint, like, the correct thing to do would have to not have Will Ferrell, at least, you know, the way they did. Like, that character is extraneous, doesn't really bring anything to the story. Like, that could have been worked around. And then you're trimming 7 minutes right there. And you clean that up. He feels like he's in a different movie. I love Will Ferrell, and I kind of hate on him to you just to annoy you. But like,
no, you hate Will Ferrell. You hate happiness. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. Will Ferrell, with the exception of The Other Guys, which is a great movie, really only has one speed. Like, he just kind of has his shtick, and it's very funny, and it was especially funny back then because it was still so new and fresh. But like, he does just kind of come in, like I said, like in a different film. And I still think that, like, and I thought this back then even, was like, then the closing shots when he's like, and he's like doing that all the time, like, that's in a different movie. Like, that's not this movie. Like, it's just a completely different style of humor that is all of a sudden, like, shoved, like, fisted into this film.
If I have to defend it, I'll take the other side. I don't 100% disagree with you, but just to take the other side, I think the point of him, whether they executed it or not, is to show if you think these guys are bad, this guy's the worst. So when Owen Wilson goes to a fucking funeral, like, I think he's only in the film from a story standpoint, outside of like, we got Will Ferrell, we're gonna put him in the film, is to make them look better, is to make Owen Wilson look like, see, he's got a moral compass. He's a good guy. He was just having fun, and he fell in love, and he's a really good. This guy has no soul. Will Ferrell has no soul, and he'll go to the depths of the ocean just to get laid. And let's show a clear difference, and then also show Owen Wilson's like emotional journey, like where he puts his toe in the water and goes, "What the fuck am I?" Like, that's his rock bottom. His rock bottom of the film is going to that funeral. And that's what really motivates him to sort of change his ways. So you need that element in the script. Could it be done better? Of course. Does it drag on a little bit? Yes.
Yeah.
But that has to happen in the film.
Yeah, no, I agree. He has to have a rock bottom. And again, I'm picking hairs here from a scene that's really funny.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm happy that Will Ferrell scene is in the movie because it's iconic, and the meatloaf and all that shit. Like, it's really funny.
Ma, the meatloaf! Fuck!
Just strictly filmmaking perspective, like, have him call and have Will Ferrell, Chaz, whatever his name is, be like, "Oh yeah, meet me at this address and I'll help you out or show you the way," or whatever. And he shows up and it's at the cemetery. Right, and then he's like, "Oh my God!" And with this, Will Ferrell's there, like, "Oh, this is where you really get the tail." And it's like, "Oh," and then you just have that, and then it's so much more streamlined.
It's so much tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but then you lose arguably the best line of the movie, "Ma, the meatloaf."
Sexual and violent, best line of the movie.
Sexual and violent. I think my favorite line is,
The painting was a gift, Todd. I'm taking it with me.
As a slight counter to the point you just made about why that was like his big turning point, Owen Wilson's going to the funeral, he has to hit rock bottom and see this woman and be, you know, inspired by his love for Rachel McAdams. All true. But then it's like it was a bad decision to, like, then when his climactic romantic speech, they have to throw in the joke where he's like, "And Chaz is cleaning up. Oh, he's really onto something. He like these funerals."
I went with Chaz, who you forgot to tell me is totally insane. He also might be a genius because it actually does work. He's cleaning up.
John!
I'm sorry.
That totally undercuts your entire point. And, like, I get they did it because they probably thought it was funny.
yeah, because they thought it was funny, but.
And it's just so stupid because Rachel McAdams is like, "John,"
Yeah,
or like whatever. Like, it's just like.
But that's a classic. Yeah, that is a classic older thinking of, like, guys love sex, right? And she's like, "Billy, what are you doing? Don't be."
Yeah, but I mean, come on. But I get why it's there. But you made a very valid point about why he needs to go have the Will Ferrell connect. You know, and
so
that
I understand
line,
film.
It chops out the legs of your argument of, like, that was his turning point, but like he's making his huge speech where he's professing his love in front of this girl's family, in front of a church, and he's like, hey, he's getting a lot of pussy at those funerals. You know what I mean? Like, it's really...
Yeah, but that's just poor screenwriting. They're just like, structure is there, but your dialogue, you're missing the point. You're right. That should not be there. That should not be there.
That line bothered me. I think the third, like, it's such an over-the-top comedy throughout, but the first 2 acts mostly feel like they could be real.
Yeah.
Like, yes, things are exaggerated, but it seems real. And then that third act, almost everything that happens feels like, what? Like, why are they doing this? Why is this happening? And I can nitpick that whole final wedding scene apart, that Bradley Cooper sits there for 10 minutes and lets Owen Wilson go on his speech, and he's just like, cuts to him once in a while, and he's like, You know, and I'm just like, that guy would have beat the shit out of Owen Wilson the second he started shit. So it's just a lot of little things like that. I don't know why Owen Wilson is so offended when they make up, and then Vince Vaughn says, hey, I'm getting married. And he's like, leave, politely leave. Like, that was just like an unnecessary, like that never felt believable to me even back then. I was like, why are you so mad? Like,
because, well, you're missing the deep emotional layer of that. you can't get to it. You can't emote.
The tones are all over the place.
That's what I'm trying to tell you guys, and I'm not picking on love, because I don't think friendship exists either.
The reason he's doing that is because they're all each other had, and now Owen Wilson is alone, and he comes back and he goes, great, you're gonna be with me? And he goes, no, I'm gonna be with her. And he's like, but I thought we were friends. Like, I thought we were in this together. We're gonna be gigolos forever. And he's saying, no, I'm not gonna be with you. I'm gonna be with her. And that's why he goes back to his old ways. That's why he goes back to see Chaz, because he's just trying to get to that place that he feels safe. That's why that happens. I'm not saying it's good.
Like it's just,
I'm just saying that's why it needs to happen.
It all goes back to the point that we talked about, that it's like there's just too much in that third act. Like, I can't even remember the order of things now. I'm sitting here like trying to remember it so I can argue with you. But like, there's just like 20 scenes at 20 different locations in 20 minutes. Yeah. Like, it's just like I just think so much of that should have been cut.
Right.
And you could have streamlined it and made it make more sense, where like, it's like when Vince Vaughn goes to his apartment and they make peace, you're like, okay, this is the beginning of the resolution. So it starts to feel like, okay, we're coming down. Nope, get out. Oh wait, no, now we're fighting again?
Yeah.
Like, we're 2 hours into this movie. Like, maybe it's time to start wrapping things up. And then instead of like getting a really, you know, it just seems so forced. And then he's on his own. And then all of a sudden he's at that engagement party and he's dusting an angel food cake or whatever. Like, we're just in all these different locations so rapidly.
Yeah.
That like it's a mess.
Well, they cram the thing, and that's, again, this is what I was alluding to before. They cram everything in after they leave the house, but in reality, what they should have done is the house shouldn't be as long. That whole weekend, that whole like the duck hunting scene, funny. These are all funny things, but like they go on the boat, they play football for no fucking reason, like. None of these things need to happen other than comedy. Which is gold. The whole storyline with the mother and call me kitty cat and I'm gonna flash on my boobs, and that doesn't need to be in there either. Like, none of the comedy, none of the enjoyable, fun parts of the film like need to be in the movie. The things that need to be in the movie are the things at the end of the film, where he needs cause and effect to like emotionally feel vulnerable and be hurt and be pushed away and like to get back to a point where he's willing to open up. Like, those things need to happen for the end of the movie to happen. So if you're looking to cut things, I don't think it's the act, the problem of the third act. It's the problems before it where you're not pushing the story forward before that. Well, but you're losing the comedy, which I don't want to make that sacrifice either. I want that to be the same. But this is the conundrum of comedies with heart. What do you cut? Something's got to give.
Well, I disagree with you, because I think the problems are in the third act, and I've told you now like 5 things you could cut.
What would you do? All you told me was Will Ferrell, and sure, I'll agree with that. But what else have you told me? How would you fix the third act to streamline it?
I would cut out the entire scene of him going to confront her again and getting beat up by Sack at that party. Like, that just doesn't need to be in there. Anything that you glean from that, you could have just really slipped in. And I think right there, you make the film so much better. I think an interesting thing, sort of to your point, whereas if they made it today, how they would have never left the house. Like, I think that would have been interesting. I know hindsight's 20/20, so we can sit here and be like, well, if I had made it.
I'm a genius. I should make all films.
Yeah. I'm so much better at this than all these people.
Yeah, obviously.
But no, like if when Sack decides that they're gonna get married, or they're, it's official, they're setting a date or whatever it is, like it could have been like a surprise wedding almost. Like, because he sees that he's losing her, so he's like, I'm gonna really put the pressure on her. I invited all the guests; they're coming tomorrow. So then this wedding takes place at the place.
That would have been much better.
Yeah, and then it's okay, and then you don't need all the Vince Vaughn, Isla Fisher stuff in the third act can be accomplished just by being like him being like, you look, I'm in love with this broad. She's crazy. I'm crazy. Let's drive away together right now. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need all that other stuff. So
yeah, no, I really like that idea. I just piggybacking off what your idea. I think it'd be super funny if it was sort of a little bit of a Graduate type ending where they do that, they break up the wedding, they decide to run off together, whatever, and then like there's like a look of like this all happened in this bubble. And then as soon as they get out of this bubble, like there's a like, we were like, oh shit, like what did we just, like we did a lot in this one weekend, and like, and then the movie's over. Like, this guy's a gigolo. He hasn't, he's been doing this his whole life. You just met 4 days ago. Like,
they're all just driving away like in awkward silence.
Yeah, that would be super. Yeah. I think that'd be super funny.
Yeah, that's funny. You keep saying gigolo. Why do you keep saying gigolo?
Because I love Deuce Bigalow.
But I think gigolo like literally means like a male escort. It doesn't mean just a slut, a male slut.
Well, what else should I refer to them as?
Male sluts.
They're cocksmen. I don't know what. Like, I'm trying to think of a
perfect. I'm a cocksman.
I feel like that's how they're accurately described. They're guys who go around and fuck girls.
I just didn't know. I just don't. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Okay. I'm not gonna apologize. I'm a cocksman.
As I think I mentioned to you on the phone, I hate that little kid that demands the bicycle. I think that kid is awful. I think that is the low point of the entire movie. I think his performance is awful. It's sort of like the foul-mouthed old granny. Like, it's such a cliche to have some little tough kid. Like, ain't no kids talking to some 6'5" stranger like that at a wedding.
Why are you yelling at me?
Whatever, make me a bicycle, clown.
Give me a bicycle, clown, or whatever. It's just like the worst acting. I just hate it every time it takes me out of it.
So you hate children? Like, you're just no child actors?
If that kid is representative of all children, yes, I hate children.
That kid, we should look it up, but that kid is related to someone who made that film. It was like, there's no way that's not a friend of someone's son. Like, that's just...
Yeah, well, no, you know what's more accurate is that kid is definitely like the son of some executive at Netflix who I'm going to meet in 6 years and pitch a film, and he's going to have heard about this and be like, oh, so you hated that fucking kid, huh?
Yeah,
that's my 100%. Son. Yeah, he's going to ruin my career.
He's going to bury, now me too, but yeah, he's burying both of us at this point.
We didn't even talk about Isla Fisher yet. I love Isla Fisher. I think she's so talented. She makes me laugh second most in this movie. To Vince Vaughn. I think she's so good and so beautiful. I just love her. But when she jerks him off under the table, and that whole bit is just comedy gold when he's like...
He's joking around. Feels so good when he jokes.
Feels so good. Yeah, feels so good when
she's joking. She's joking. It feels so good when she jokes or he jokes or whatever. It's so good.
It's
great delivery.
It's rare, in my opinion, to do it in a way that feels honest and like not forced and not just like to shock. It's not meant to shock you. It's not meant to like you're not laughing. You're laughing at the absurdity, obviously, but you're not like the joke is not him getting jerked off. The joke is that he's handling it.
Shirts and pants. Holy shirts and pants.
Like his response and his performance is the joke, not that it's happening.
Terrific. That was terrific.
Where I feel like lesser films it's like, oh, it's a weird thing that's happening. It's we're gonna poop in the dean's office, and they're like, that's the joke that they just did it. But the joke.
That sounds good. You should write that.
Yeah, poop in the dean's office. Great, got it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the joke. Where this is the response to the situation. That is the absurdity of the situation. The humor's around it, not it itself. I think that's really where intelligent comedy comes from. But again, what the fuck do I know?
I love I think this movie's probably most famous for, perhaps, the entirety of like the wedding montage. I mean, that is just as fun and enjoyable 5 minutes of film as there is. Like, it's just so much fun, and it's made all the better by the fact that I think it's pretty clear that they're improvising so much of that. Yeah. And like they use a couple of shots where both Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson like look drunk, and they're like you can see them laughing very genuinely, like not in character. Like Owen Wilson, at least twice, I think, like looks up at the camera.
I know, I was gonna say that.
He lenses it, or he's like looking at the crew, like, you know, like, are you hearing this? Like, can you believe this? Like he's just breaking character, but it's like perfect, because it's not like they don't call attention to it. It's just you can see it if you can see it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Vince Vaughn's whole thing about like jabroni. He says like jabroni. And he's like, he's just like spitting cake out, and he's like, this fucking guy, unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Being an R-rated movie, it makes me so happy when he goes, this fucking guy. Because he could have just been like, this guy, and it loses something to me. Like, they're so genuine. And just seems like a really this fucking guy, like that's a wedding. That's someone who's got their guard down. They're a little bit drunk. They're trying to bring everybody. Like it's the word "fucking" means something to me in that, and I'm so glad that it was R-rated so it can have that word in there, because it means something to that character in that moment.
Yeah, it really does. Those little things you don't a lot of people don't even realize, but. That there is a huge difference in that scene between this fucking guy and this guy.
This guy, like, it's just huge. That has to be there. I'm so glad it is.
We haven't talked a lot about the other cast members. I think Rachel McAdams, for being like the straight man character, is phenomenal, and I think her performance is so endearing that it makes the rest of it work.
Yeah.
Like she feels like a fully fleshed out character. Which is probably, I think, pretty rare in these types of movies, to have the female lead, like in sort of a bro comedy, feel like a real person that you like, and that, you know what I mean, is like really fleshed out. I think her emotional groundedness, along with Christopher Walken's, really drives the emotional core of the film forward.
Bradley Cooper, I think, is fantastic. He plays a great douchebag. I think it was a little convenient how everything sort of worked out the way that it did, with him, getting the private detective finding out, but I think it just worked a little bit too perfectly. But his performance is great. Like, he's someone you definitely want to hate.
I have a nitpick there too, just briefly. I'm really I'm like, I think they laid it on a little too thick with him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's so convenient that he's just the worst. Like, there's no gray area.
Yeah, she wouldn't have been with him for 3.5 years.
Yeah,
the guy is a psychotic asshole.
He's a nightmare.
It's not even like it was secret.
I think it's a much better story if there's more gray to him, where he's not show me a reason why they were together in the first place. Show me why this is going to be a difficult decision for her. Because at the end of the film, it's not. It's not a difficult decision. This guy's a piece of shit through and through. Yeah. So what are we worried about? Like, leave him. And I understand they want you to want them to be together, but I would rather feel like this is a really difficult decision rather than I would feel it's so clear, cut, and dry. So I don't like that about the story, but I like his performance. I think he nails the performance of it.
Yeah, no, he's hilarious. And it can kind of be both. Like, he can be a snake, terrible person, but she shouldn't know that. Like, I feel like that I think what the turning point in his character is when he's throwing up in the toilet and he's such an asshole to her.
For no
Like,
reason.
So over the top. Like, why don't you go get me a seltzer, whatever the hell he says.
A
Can you do
7
that?
Up.
Can you do that? As a what?
7 Up.
Yeah, 7 Up. Can you do that, kid? You know, oh, don't spare me your fucking bullshit, or, you know, your emotional bullshit, or whatever the hell he says. Like, it's like he's so nuts.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, no way. No way she's with that guy.
Mr. Environmental's also a hunter. It's kind of an interesting combination.
I hunt quail, Jeremy. They're overpopulated in this region, and they're decimating the grubworm population. You got a fucking problem with that?
Not nearly as much as I do with the attire that you have on, or just your general point of view towards everybody. But let's go kill some birds. I'm psyched.
Although I will say, I mean, I love his performance overall because it is really funny. One of my favorite things he says is not funny at all, and it's just because it's super badass. Is at the end when he confronts Owen Wilson, he punches him, and Owen Wilson starts to get up.
Don't you fucking get up.
Will you just stop?
Don't you fucking stand up. I think that's like the most G shit. It's like, that's the one time I like his character. Like, oh yeah. Like, you know, like, don't you fucking, like, don't you dare. Like, it's so terrifying in an awesome way. Like, you want to be him in that setup.
Yeah. I could go on and on about things that there's so many lines I love in this film, but.
Okay, so in summation.
In summation.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good time.